and welcome to Tune In to Wellness Today. My name is Lisa Marie and I am the host of today's show. Tune In to Wellness Today brings to you an opportunity to learn about natural holistic wellness in the Capital District and surrounding area, as well as gives you the opportunity to meet the practitioners and representatives that provide these natural wellness services and products to you. Today our focus is going to be on veterans, United States veterans. That includes all the states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. I look forward to you meeting my two guests today and hearing more about what they have to say and how they might be able to help you or a veteran loved one of yours to receive the care and service they need. A troubling fact is this: the Department of Veteran Affairs is still telling us that there are 20 veterans a day who are committing suicide in the United States. That's 7,300 veterans a year. Some of those veterans are suffering from what's called post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Some of the symptoms of PTSD are this: sleeplessness, reoccurring dreams, anger outbursts, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of isolation, fear, and suicide ideation. And what that means is thoughts of suicide. If you are suffering from any one of those symptoms, or you know someone that is, I highly encourage you to tune into this show today. Stay tuned in, listen to these guests, hear what they have to say, and reach out to receive the help you or your loved one needs. My first guest is Dr. Edward Tick from Soldier's Heart. He has tirelessly worked for 40 years with veterans. He's internationally renowned for the work that he does with his veterans programs, healing programs. He works with our military, our veterans, and their families to receive the care and help that they need through a very unique program. Welcome, Dr. Tick.
Thank you very much. Honored to be with you, and thank you for creating this program to be of special support to our veterans and their families.
Thank you. You're very welcome. My pleasure, and thank you for being here. You have written 6 books.
Yes.
You've authored 6 books, and including an award-winning book. Tell us a little bit about that book, the name of the book.
The name of the book is War and the Soul. The subtitle is Healing Our Nation's Veterans from Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder.
So you know a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder.
I do. I have, as many people working in the veteran field, been involved with veterans my whole life, and in my family history and transgenerational history as well. But I've been working directly with veterans since the end of the Vietnam War, and I am a PhD. I am trained and certified, licensed as a psychotherapist. However, while our psychological understanding and wisdom about trauma and about veterans is very important, it is terribly limited in providing us with a comprehensive and holistic understanding of the disorder that we call post-traumatic stress disorder and all that veterans suffer. So for all these decades, I've been looking for the best holistic practices that can truly bring hope and healing and transformation to veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and moral injury, the other invisible wound that has been recognized in recent years and our veterans suffer from terribly.
One of the philosophies that you have that I highly support and I'm pleased to hear is that when you look at post-traumatic stress disorder, you look at it as being a normal and natural response to someone who has been on the battlefield versus a pathology or a diagnosis. So how did you come to that recognition that that's normal and natural, you know, and because it's healing even knowing that, because a soldier then can say, all right, this is normal, I'm not an oddity.
Yes.
How did you come to that?
Well, one way was growing up with veterans and working with them my entire life and realizing that, and also comparing traumatic experiences, not just in the combat zone, but all of us have suffered trauma, and our nation is suffering trauma. We are talking today, the morning after the terrible Florida massacre. Not only were the families and the survivors of that shooting traumatized, but our entire nation is traumatized. So trauma is an intensive exposure to violence that penetrates not only our bodies and our minds, but our hearts and our souls, and transforms us entirely. When we understand that, and we do understand that trauma is part of life, and as Buddha taught, life is suffering, and we have a fantasy that life can be easy and secure and safe, and we can all move through it comfortably, and only some people are traumatized, only some people drop out of the life cycle. And that's really not true. Rather, we can understand that our response to trauma is the way human beings and animals, the higher order animals, mammals, also break down in this characteristic way. So when we look at the animal world, we discover dogs, cats, wolves, bears, elephants, whales, and other sentient beings who have feelings, sensitivity, and live in community break down in the same characteristic way. It seems like we have been designed and programmed to experience trauma and to break down in these characteristic ways. We've actually been built for trauma. And so the way we respond to it is of utmost importance. And separating trauma survivors out from the general population, diagnosing them as if they have a disorder that most people mistake for a mental illness rather than normal response to traumatizing abnormal conditions, really does a disservice and removes people from the flow of human life and from the general community where they really need to be, because it's our community responsibility to respond to and take care of all of our wounded members.
Absolutely. You, as a psychotherapist, I love the fact that you've combined the spiritual concepts with the psychotherapy education experience that you have to develop these psycho-spiritual programs, you know, and where I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're empowering a soldier, you know, to kind of take on a warrior persona or characteristics, and in giving them an identity instead of a disability. Is that how you would say it?
Yes, well said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, as part of that program, you're also bringing soldiers back to Vietnam.
Yes.
I would love for you to touch on that with the audience, what that program is all about and how you've seen people heal through that program, please.
Sure. Happy to. First, let me make a comment on how we respond to post-traumatic stress disorder. Since we have this modern diagnosis, our audience should know that this has been known since ancient times. It's in the Bible. It's in ancient Greek literature and Roman literature. The Native Americans knew about it and had names for it as well. But those were spiritual names, and people were kept in the community, and it was understood that people were wounded in their hearts and souls, not just their biology and their psyche. And so when I talk about PTSD, I translate the acronym, since everybody's familiar with that acronym now. Post-traumatic soul distress. It's soul distress because we have been wounded to our core, and our spiritual being and our psycho-spiritual makeup is also transformed. And I also call it post-traumatic social disorder because our veterans aren't the problem. Society's disorder and neglect and abandonment of them, misunderstanding of their condition and mistreatment of it on return is a social disorder. And whenever veterans and civilians are separated from each other, our veterans feel betrayed and abandoned, and as if our country has reneged on its contract with them.
Yes.
So we understand that community is necessary and spirituality is necessary, and we work to restore that and translate the wound, post-traumatic stress disorder, into an honorable warrior's wound that you can carry through life and don't need to collapse. And when we realize that many people through the ages have had this wound, King David and King Saul, if we read the Bible correctly, had this wound. It was called by a different name, but they had the wound. St. Francis, and the St. Francis prayer, the beautiful peace prayer we have all inherited, comes directly from this tradition. George Washington, if we read his biographies closely, we realize that he had the wound also. He heard, we are told, the screams of the of the wounded and dying from his very first battles for the rest of his life. So as one of the symptoms. So I tell our veterans, you're in elevated company. You are carrying an honorable warrior's wound. And if you identify with these warriors, and you can't just go back to being an ordinary civilian again. And so embrace your warriorhood. You're on a lifelong warrior's journey. We say once a Marine, always a Marine. It's true about all warriors. Once a warrior, always a warrior. We have to support the further evolution of a warrior identity so that the veterans feel restored in their minds, their hearts, their souls, and realize that they do continue to have profound importance to the rest of us, and our society needs warriors.
It's beautiful. Dr. Tick, in Vietnam, when you bring them back to Vietnam, what is your goal there?
Healing. For the Vietnamese as well. I have led 17 journeys back to Vietnam. I lead them every year. Our next one will be this November. We'll be there for Veterans Day, practicing international veteran reconciliation and healing between the Vietnamese veterans and American veterans. All factions of the war will be represented, and we also have Canadian and Australian veterans joining us. So this will be truly an international Armistice Day devoted to everybody's healing. Now, what happens in Vietnam, though our war was over there and was so violent, we lost 58,000 Americans, and over 2,000 MIA. We're still grieving those. We had 300,000 wounded. The Vietnamese lost 3 million people in that war and have over 250,000 wounded, and their infrastructure was wrecked. If PTSD were only about neurobiology, about our brain chemistry, there would be epidemic and massive PTSD in Vietnam, but in fact, there's none. So Vietnam is, and I've researched this for 17 years, and I work with their professionals and their universities, as well as thousands of veterans on the ground and in the rural areas. So we've brought back research and evidence that there's no PTSD in Vietnam of the chronic form that we have here. How is this possible? Well, in Vietnam, they have the community and the spirituality and the traditions all in place so that people don't break down. And what we learn is that if a society genuinely provides its people full homecoming and reintegration in the community, and everybody carries the experience together, and people don't have moral injury because the Vietnamese were only defending their home. They say, we were never even fighting Americans. We didn't think about you as Americans. We were just trying to protect our children from the invaders. So they don't have moral injury. And they welcome all of us Americans, veterans and spouses and survivors and peace activists, all with great love and generosity.
The sense of community and protection is what's lacking in the United States to that degree of
utterly, yes.
Yeah, where we do not protect our veterans, and we give them tools and sources and expect them to go off on their own
and take care of themselves.
Even label them.
Yes. So just regarding Vietnam, let me just quickly finish and say that what we found in 17 years of doing this is that PTSD heals very quickly and profoundly and comprehensively in just 2 or 3 weeks back in Vietnam, where it hasn't healed in 40 or 50 years back here. So reconciling with the former foe, exchanging forgiveness, doing atonement projects.
Beautiful.
I'm sorry I hurt your country. Now I'm going to help rebuild it. We've built 2 schools in the Mekong Delta. And our veterans always gift the philanthropy projects. The Vietnamese embrace them and love them, and we enter into a shared identity. In the Vietnamese people's words, we are all brothers and sisters who survived the same hell. From now on, we need to be telling the world the same story.
Beautiful.
So our vets come back, Scouts Honor, sleeping like babies after 2 weeks back in Vietnam, when nothing we've done here in the States has brought that relief to them in 50 years.
It's quite profound and beautiful. And so what I'm hearing from you is that our veterans through your programs are receiving healing from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
They're receiving healing from moral injury.
Yes.
They're sleeping again.
Yes.
Again, right?
Yes.
All right, and they're feeling like they have a sense of purpose. again.
Yes.
Which we here in the United States are striving to give them, but have not yet totally achieved it. So I wholeheartedly hope that you can continue to spread your message and that we see more of that healing taking place. Thank you so much.
You're very
for all
welcome.
you're doing and all your team is doing. If you would like more information about Dr. Edward Tick and his team of people, I encourage you to go online to soldiersheart.net. Clearly reach out to him and have him help you the way you need to be helped. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much.
Pleasure. I certainly do hope you are encouraged by what Edward had to show you, Dr. Tick had to show you, and I certainly do encourage you to reach out to him. My second guest is the wonderful Cheryl Hage Perez from Veterans and Community Housing Coalition. Cheryl is the executive director of that organization, and she has also tirelessly worked with veterans and the homeless population and the disabled population for 38 years. Today we're going to speak about veterans homelessness and how Cheryl and her team of people are working to stop that bleeding of homelessness. Currently in the United States there are over 50,000 veterans homeless on any given day, 400 in the capital region alone. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you, Lisa Marie. It's very nice to be here.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for all the work that you are
Thank you.
doing. We're speaking about over 50,000 veterans that are homeless every day in the
Every
United
night.
States,
Mhm.
every night. How? Why? Why are so many homeless?
There's so many different reasons. I think, of course, most of the reasons are related to their time in the military. Post-traumatic stress disorder, as you were previously talking about, anxiety, depression, addiction, military sexual trauma, mostly for our female veterans, but also for our male veterans. And they come back, the jobs that they had in the military, they don't translate to working in the community. And they're lost. I think, in general, the breakdown of family, they don't leave with a strong family foundation, and they come back with no foundation. So they're often left alone and no support, there's no direction. Think about it. When you're in the military, they tell you what time to get up, what time to go to bed, what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat, what your job is, when you're going to work, and then you come out and you have decisions to make. And after being so structured for so long, and especially for our combat veterans, it's a very difficult adjustment. The lack of affordable housing, employment skills, it all contributes.
It all contributes. And you brought up a very good point I was going to ask you about, and that is that mindset, when you're in the military, combat or not combat, that very structured, you are told, you do not think for yourself kind of
Absolutely.
attitude does not work in civilian life.
No.
And so you have to learn transferable skills, right? And so to my understanding, your organization does offer some skill development and transferable skills. Can you talk a little bit about what it is that you do in that area, please?
Yes. We have a continuum of services for our homeless veterans in 7 counties. We serve Warren, Washington, Saratoga, Fulton, Montgomery, Schoharie, and Schenectady counties. And any veteran who is homeless can be referred to us from anywhere. Our first level of care is transitional housing, and those are programs set up for veterans who need to relearn their life skills. They always say, and I know this because I've had 4 family members in the Marine Corps, 2 currently. The goal when they go to boot camp is to break them down and rebuild them into Marines so that they're capable of dealing with combat, dealing with what they're going to see during war. But then they're not rebuilt up. So some of them have to learn very basic skills like money management, personal care, just things that we take for granted. So we provide temporary housing up to 2 years, and we have case management staff and assistants who work with them on an individual service plan to identify what are the obstacles, why are you homeless, what do you need to accomplish before you're ready to live a productive life in the community. And once they accomplish their goals, we're able to help them find permanent housing, assist them with finding gainful employment if they're capable. But for some, they're not. So we help them with a service-connected disability or a Social Security disability. Everybody's different.
Cheryl, is there a fee to the veteran for these services?
The VA pays us a per diem rate based on our occupancy.
Okay.
So for the most part, it's no cost to the veteran.
Wonderful.
And our community has been so generous to our veterans that they are invited to community dinners. They're invited to luncheons, breakfast, recreational, social activities. Tickets are donated so they can go to the movies. It's just never ceases to amaze me how much support there is for our veterans.
Beautiful. Now, what about someone who's in a housing situation that is going to be evicted? Where did you step in and help them with that process?
Absolutely. We have a program called Support Services for Veterans and Families. They have to have, every one of our veterans that we serve has to have their DD-214, and they'll know what that is. That's their discharge papers. And they have to have been at least honorably discharged. And they don't have to be combat veterans. Once they present that, if they're being evicted, our staff goes in, and sometimes we can prevent the eviction.
Okay.
We negotiate with landlords, National Grid, and we can pay temporary financial assistance for rent, security deposits, help pay off the utility bill so it doesn't get shut off. So yes, we can also help with veterans who are living in the community.
It's beautiful, and you're helping them and the families too.
Their
that are
families,
attached to them
absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely.
So, in the life development skill piece, because that's so intriguing to me, because you're not just helping them. It's that old saying: you can give someone a fish, or you can teach them how to fish.
Absolutely.
You're teaching them how to have life skills.
Yes.
So, are family members involved with that too, as well, to hear what you're doing so that can help support that veteran?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's many times where the whole family needs to be coordinated.
Right.
A lot of times there's a major problem with reunification when the veteran comes home.
Yes.
And they don't see what their role is anymore. Many times their wife and children, they've had to go on without them.
Yes.
So the role that they played in the family has been replaced. They don't know where they fit in. So a lot of times it's just a question of helping the family reunify.
Wonderful. Beautiful.
So yes, that's a very important part.
So anyone that's listening to this today who is struggling in all the areas that your organization supports, how do they start the process?
They simply call Veterans and Community Housing Coalition. Our website is www.vchcny.org. There's a clear explanation of all of our programs, and a simple phone call will put you in the right direction. If it's you or somebody you know, a family member, a friend, somebody you bump into, you need to know that help is out there.
Thank you so much for all that you're doing for the veterans and
Thank
for doing
you.
it for 38 years.
You're
That is-
aging me.
We are, you look beautiful. We are
you.
so appreciative
Thank
for this,
you.
and we greatly need you clearly. So thank
you so much.
If you would like more information about the work Cheryl and her team does, as Cheryl said, go online to vchcny.org. Clearly reach out to Cheryl and her team and receive the help that you need. Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Lisa Marie.
Please do reach out to Dr. Edward Tick or Cheryl if you feel you could use their services or if you know someone that could. I also encourage you to reach out to me, Lisa Marie. I own and operate an organization called Inspiring Wellness Solutions. We offer natural, holistic healing and care. Go online to inspiringwellnesssolutions.com. Take a look at all the services we offer and come in and receive the healing that you need. I do offer free consultations, so give me a call. We can consult over the phone or in person. Again, receive the healing you need. You deserve it. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and live prosperously. Namaste.
I can see clear